I do. And I'd just like to say we asked a few people because we told them we have a Baroness coming on. And so he's a bit more related to you rather than Dylan, sadly.
Oh, I'm not.
Um, but yeah, so the first question is, what is the greatest privilege about being a peer?
Walking through such a brilliantly beautiful historic building that I have no right to be there. And as a kid, I grew up liking the idea of going to old castles. And now that's where I go to work. Can you imagine anything more wondrous?
Wow.
The next question is, do you think the law often infringes too much on an individual's sovereignty?
Absolutely spot on. Yes, I've written about this quite a lot. And I'm frightened that, in fact, contemporary politicians use the law as a substitute for morality. So rather than trying to give a lead and sort of say to society, this is how you should live, they use the law to say, this is how you will live. And that denies people choice. And that's a very dangerous use of the law. It means we over legislate on everything. And it also indicates a kind of lack of real moral leadership where you kind of inspire people to want to live a good life. You force them to, which is dangerous to individual sovereignty.
Okay, thank you very much. And our third or four questions is, do you think Britain should have a codified constitution?
Oh, this is so big in our
That's
syllabus
a
right now.
politics student.
Yeah, and I don't actually, even though, because I think again it's a bit like the lazy solution. The written constitution in America came out of a period of American Revolution, and in a way was spontaneous, not spontaneous, but it kind of came out of that period. Now what's happened is that we kind of artificially think, oh God, if only we had a constitution, we could refer to it the whole time. But that's because we don't know how to win an argument, so we want a set of rules. And even in America, where the constitution actually does matter somewhat, in when people there's a massive rows now about where the First Amendment covers hate speech. So it's not going to guarantee that you're not going to have the same rows, let me tell you. And those people who say the European ECHR convention, people will say, well, you can't, we've got to be careful. They'll say the ECHR guarantees free speech in a constitutional form through the law. Yeah, well, it doesn't, does it? Because free speech is being eroded every day. So there's no point just having it written down. You have to fight for the spirit of it.
Thank you very much. And the final question is a bit more informal than the others, and it's asking, what's your favorite artist or band all time musical?
Bloody hell. Oh, I don't know. I can't say. All right. So, I mean, I had my best mate from school round yesterday. So I will tell you that we spent a lot of time reminiscing about Neil Young and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, which we were kind of like at 17, 18. We were kind of ahead of the curve, like in our school. Do you know what I mean? Like we were the
You're the cool
right,
kids.
right, but yeah, we were the well. I don't know whether cool has ever been applied to me, but I was as likely to then go on, which I did to as a punk for a period of time. So anyway, that's that. I actually love Wagner, and I a completely different end of the spectrum in terms of music, and oh God, artists. I'm not going to do the artist, but I'd say that one of my favorite novelists. Maybe I've been being too sentimental, but I when I was at school rather, I started reading Graham Greene, and he changed my life. So I owe him a great debt because he was one of the most, and he's not very fashionable today. He was one of the most morally challenging writers I'd ever read. And the person who comes close to that, although I love lots of literature, was Philip Roth. And of course, Philip Roth inevitably is somebody that everyone's tried to cancel because he doesn't fit into the period that we live in. But the main thing is to love and develop a love of art, literature, and culture. Everyone should do that. And that's where you really learn how to think, in my opinion. You read literature, you look at art, and you listen to great music.